Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to MindShifters Radio with Dr. Michael Ryce, the Forgiveness Doctor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Hayes, and I'll be your co-host today. Michael and Jeanie are taking a little bit of downtime, and actually he may be coming on the show today if he has a connection. We began our MindShifters Radio Talk show on January the 31st of this year with Carol Guy, who does the fifth dimensional living on Mondays at 2 p.m. And thank you, Carol, for getting us on this path. It was great connecting with you yesterday, and if you're out there and you want to be part of it today, please do. Instructions for how to listen online or to participate in the chat room, all you have to do is to go to the WHYAGAIN.com, mindshiftersradio.php, and our call the number. It's 646-200-4169. That's 646-200-4169. And we had some calls yesterday. We had some people in the chat room, and we wonder if Shanae and whether it was Gabriel from the other day, if anyone is out there, has any comments or questions, any thoughts, ideas about the work. And Amy is on the switchboard, so Amy, if you will let me know whenever that there is a question that someone may have.
Okay,
I do know that. Pardon me?
There is a caller in here. I'm not sure if it's someone you're waiting for or if it's a caller. Do you want me to click on it?
Sure. We'll see who's there.
Okay, this is area code 949. Hello?
Hi. Hello, this is Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Hi, Patrick.
I'm doing good. David, how about you yourself?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you for being on here today. I spoke with Terry a few minutes ago, and he told me what the situation was. And actually, Patrick, I'd planned to get to your comments and questions that you had emailed in about what I refer to as the healing crisis, what Michael talks about. That is kind of the gist of your question, wasn't it?
Similar or more or less the benefits to it. When somebody goes through a healing crisis, I mean, a lot of the times there's dealing with that, and that's all that's remembered, and a lot of the times people don't necessarily articulate on some of the benefits of that they experience afterwards.
Yeah,
for me, just doing things like cleansing and doing my work or doing releasing process on different things. I've had so many different benefits. Eyesight, my hearing improved massively, just a lot of little things that are physical characteristics that I was experiencing. Physical pain just up and went.
Well, there's the answer. See, because your question, what I heard your question too, Patrick, is about what is it that people can expect. And just like, and you're familiar with doing the breath work when people do the still point breathing, that everyone has a different experience. And whatever it is that's up for that person and where they're at in their energetic level is what it is that's going to determine what gets healed. Remember, this is an energy system that we're dealing with, that we're looking at. And often it's difficult and challenging for the mind once to come in there and to start operating and understanding and fixing it when the mind isn't involved in doing that, in the respect that this is an energy system. We have to first look at it, and we don't know where the energies have stuck at. As an example, I'll give you a quick one that I have for myself personally. I'm a Vietnam veteran. One day, about 25 years ago, I got out of a van. It was a windy day. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. The wind caught the door, and I jerked my leg back just to prevent the door from closing on it. And all of a sudden I got a cramp in my leg. And I thought, it was just like a Charlie horse in my leg. And I kind of limped on it for a little bit. I went on to work. I was doing some work out at a Unity church. And all of a sudden my leg was tightening up more and more. I then went to sit on one of the benches just to relax it. And when I stood up, my leg totally cramped up on me, just like if you would have folded your leg up underneath of you. It was cramped and I couldn't do anything. Make a long story short, I had to crawl over to a phone, pull the phone down. People came up from the office. They called a medical unit. They came and took me to the hospital. I was fine. It was painful, but they couldn't figure it out, and I couldn't straighten my leg up. So I was sitting as if I had one knee pulled up to my chest. This was at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The doctors couldn't figure out what it was. Checked everything and did all this, and they couldn't straighten my leg up. And they literally couldn't take my leg and straighten it out. So this was at 4 o'clock. By about 6 o'clock, it's still cramping. It's still in that same position. The doctors then decided to give me something to relieve the pain and stress. I asked them what it was they were giving me, and I was told, well, this is the newest thing on the market. And I asked, not knowing then, what are the side effects? And they said, there are none. And, of course, I knew that there were. I was in a lot of pain. They gave me a shot. 45 minutes later, I asked the doctor, when is this supposed to really help? And he said, you still got the pain? I said, yeah, it is really excruciating. They then gave me a shot of Valium. 45 minutes later, nothing. Still cramped, still straight. They still couldn't straighten it out. Now, the doctor's getting a little concerned because he can't figure it out. They started calling all around about what they could, what this was. They then gave me another shot of Valium. Nothing. I'm still sitting there, coherent as I am right now, talking. I was in a lot of pain. I was really starting to get on their nerves because it was really bothering me. They then gave me a shot of morphine to quiet me. Nothing. Nothing changed. Literally, nothing changed. Now the doctors are really concerned. They take me over to get an X-ray. They can't straighten my leg out even to do an X-ray with it. They come back. I had asked them earlier about just putting me in, giving me a hot water bottle, a heating pad, actually. So I'm telling you all that because finally when they admitted me to the hospital, they gave me this, they did put a heating pad on me. They started feeding me some kind of drugs intravenously. This was about 11 o'clock at night that they finally got me, and I finally was able to let my leg straighten out. I spent the night there, got up the next morning. Doctor came in, saying, doctor, apologized. They couldn't figure out what it was. Went down to get to the pharmacy, for they had given me a bunch of medication that they said, here, take this. I then got a hold of my chiropractor at the time. She says, well, modern medicine hasn't been able to do anything, figure anything out. Come on in. Came in, did a little bit. She did some work on me, and she was a very spiritual person. Her name is Dr. Schaefer, and she did what I found out later, I had no idea. She did some energy work on me, and come to find out that I had picked up some energies from when I was in the service. Never have I had that issue or that problem since then. And so I think the whole point is that when we start looking at this body, so-called body, as an energy system, that we put certain energies into it, well, then we can expect certain things to happen. And we don't know what those are. We have no idea what the results and where it is that we have the blockages at. Only when we start to do the work, when we start doing more of the right things, then it comes to the conscious level and gives us an opportunity in order to let those things go. So what anyone can expect, just like with yourself, Patrick, saying that your hearing is improved, certain things, it's because that there's an energy that's in our system that doesn't belong in our system. Remember, within the Aramaic language, the word sin was an archery term. It wasn't something that you had done bad or wrong. It was that you're an energy of love. And when you put an energy in your system that doesn't belong in there, the system says, ouch, it needs to be removed. The tools that are offered here with this work is about removing energies that no longer, that are harmful to us. And whatever energies that a person has in them is the ones that they're going to release. And we don't know what those are. We do know that they will be released because it's a law. I mean, remember Einstein, on such things as matter, we've been all wrong. There's only energy. Energies whose vibrations have been so low as to be perceptible to the senses. When we remove those, then we get to experience our true essence of who it is that we are, love. So I don't know. Did that kind of answer your question, or do you have some thoughts on that, Patrick?
Yeah, that was interesting. It's amazing that you can hold those energies, and all of a sudden, when it's time to come up, it comes up.
Yes.
One of the things I find so... Oh, go ahead.
Well, and the thing of it is, a lot of folks, they say, I don't want to look at that. Well, then we will eventually look at that. We have to look at that. That's the law of healing. The universe will always bring to us and give us a signal of what it is that we need to heal. If we don't pay any attention to that, if we dissociate from it, then that doesn't mean that it's gone away. It only means that it's locked in the tissues. And then that's where the, quote, dis-ease comes from. It's not a disease as if it's something that's out there that's getting us. It's an unease. It's not an energy that belongs into us. And so there you have the dis-ease, a two-ness, a duality. When we remove that disease, and again, that was what in the Aramaic language with sin, it meant that we have an energy in us that doesn't belong in us. And what is the thoughts that we have around that? Because that's where it is that we have created that. We're creators. Look and see what kind of energies that we put in that need to be removed.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing as I'm listening to you, I realize how important the aspect of solitude or holding a space for yourself to actually heal through that, where it's not something that can be done between meetings, so to speak. This is work that actually requires, holding some space and especially during the cleansing type of periods.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Patrick. The idea is that, and we have to be really cautious because the mind will come up with excuses and reasons and justifications. And remember, the purpose of the mind is to relieve stress. We talked about that yesterday, and it does it automatically. And sometimes isolating, though at times there can be a space for that, for us to go through things, it can also be an avoidance with it. Why we invite people and encourage people to get in touch with support groups, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today, of the MindShifters group. The purpose for this radio talk show is to support people on a daily basis so that they can keep conscious of their work. On our own, it's very difficult to do that. And, Michael talks about that the people that have gone off to live in caves and to solitary and everything, a lot of them really do damage to themselves because there's the voices, and unless they're really connected and tapped in to their true essence, then it can be really harmful. That's why all masters all down through time have always had teachers and support in order to be observant and to be able to have that. And there are times when we do need to be, it is something that it's a personal thing that we have to go through.
Right, yeah, and that was my point. I think you used the word isolation, and I think a lot of people get might get mixed up on that. I was for a long time. And the way I see isolation is when you're alone and you're into whatever those mechanisms are for you to stay unconscious. However, when you switch over and you take time for solitude, where it's reflection and you're doing healthy things, and you're just giving yourself some space to actually perceive the world as you're going through what you're going through. Because I, for a long time, wouldn't take any time out for solitude because I had always interpreted that as isolation. And oftentimes when I'm doing the work is personal. It has to do with my memories, my experiences, how I process energy, what went into the system, and that sometimes is a private thing. If you have support there, that's wonderful. But if somebody's just out in their life living day to day, how important that solitude is versus isolation, which can be very damaging. I agree.
Yeah. Michael is talking about, when he was on Monday, he was talking about that he's going through a healing crisis, and I spoke with him even later, and he is really in a major healing crisis. And a lot of folks interpret that as well this mustn't be working. The truth is that it's working perfectly. Now, Michael is out there with Jeanie and doing some work and doing some rest time. He's giving his body an opportunity in order to replenish and rebuild itself for the next layer that comes up. So that's what's going on. Anyway, I'm wondering if Dr. Tim is on the line. We wanted to bring him in as well.
Yeah, Dave, he is. I'm gonna click him on now. Tim, are you there?
Very good.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Hey, Tim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing quite well. Listening to the conversation and enjoying it.
Good. I'm glad that Tim is on here. One of the things that I am so grateful for is Tim's support in doing this work and about having MindShifters group throughout the country and throughout the world. And our purpose is to bring this to every heart and mind on the planet. And Tim certainly has participated in making that happen. And he's operating a group out of Chicago. And Tim, if you'd like to share with the audience and maybe some of the audience of your group. Don't you all meet on Tuesday nights?
We do. We meet on Tuesday night, and I reminded everybody again last night of this Blog Talk Radio show. And so some may be listening in now or on the replays because not everybody can be available in the middle of the day.
Right.
But last night we had one of our lowest attendance groups in a long while. We had 5 people plus me. And last week we had 14 people plus me. So we hover around the 10 to 12 people per week for the past year or so.
Tim, can I ask you what the weather was like yesterday?
Yeah, it was not as bad as we've had some nights. I mean, we actually, a few weeks ago, had our winter blizzard, the actual biggest storm in years, on our Tuesday night. So that was the first time I canceled the group in 5 years. Yeah.
Well, you know, we had a beautiful day here, and I talked with several people around the country, and they were experiencing this fabulous weather. And often when that fabulous weather breaks, especially from season to season, people just get out and they tap into that energy. Yeah. That's been my experience. So I was wondering about that, you know, with the turnout. And, you know, as you know, I was part of that group, and I have seen the times, and this may be the perfect place for this, that when I first was starting the MindShifters group, that for the first 4 weeks, there was no one that attended except myself. And I began the group, I think it was at 6:30, and went to 8:30, and I did that because of a training schedule there. And for the first 4 weeks, there was no one that attended. It was just myself. And I remember that one of the people that were there at the school wondered why I would do that. And, you know, it's just about setting a standard of a space that is open, that whether anyone shows up or not. It was more about my commitment to it and to hold the space and let the universe know, hey, I am looking for folks that want to come here. It's that laws of attraction. And I just stayed with it, and lo and behold, one night 5 people showed up, just drove by. I mean, they literally drove by, and they looked, and they saw the light on. They saw that there was a meeting going on. There was one other person that was there. They came in, and you know these people, Tim, and and actually it's one of the ways that it is that I got connected with you. So, anyway, what did you guys do last night?
Last night we watched the first part of the video on MindShifters and an introduction to still point breathing.
Oh, very cool. Yep.
So I've recently added that to the rotation. What you mentioned about the groups is critical. You just have to hold that space. And in the 5.5 years now that I've been doing this group, as I mentioned, I've only canceled it once. And I have to just be there, whether there's 2 people there or one other person plus myself or 13 people. And that consistency is so valuable for the people, and they keep reinforcing that, because we'll have people that'll come every 3rd or 4th week, but when they do, they get so much out of it. That's the majority of their comments are about how grateful they are that the group is still there. Because people just can't make it to every group. They've got family activities, they've got work activities, and so, you know, if you're going to have a successful group, if you're out there thinking about starting up a MindShifters group, I'd be happy to support you. And the first thing I would tell you is you as the group leader or the core group of people starting up a group have to have that commitment and follow through.
So very true. So very true. And the value, might I ask, Tim, that you receive from being the facilitator, the core person that's there, what's the values that you receive from doing that?
Well, the easiest way for me to answer that in the general term is to say I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in Crystal Lake, and everybody wants to be seen in the prime evening hours. And for the past 5.5 years, I've given up one night a week, prime evening hours, from 6 until 9 p.m., and volunteered my time to run this group. So it's got to be worth a lot to me, or I wouldn't give up that kind of income. Yeah. And then more specifically, in terms of the value to me, I get to do this work. I get to hear one of the best presenters that I've ever heard in all my years of going to continuing education and paid lectures talk over and over again about material that helps me improve the quality of my life. And so it's helped me be less negative in my thinking. It's helped me be less irritable and angry. It's helped me be more flexible with events in my life. And it's helped me be more loving in ways that I didn't really understand I could be loving.
Well, that in itself says it, doesn't it? That in itself reflects the value of being willing to take a special night a week and to commit to that. And, you know, it's pretty amazing. And the universe always replies and gives us what it is that we need, that you're still doing that after 5 years. And more than just doing it after 5 years, for the folks that don't know you and the ones that may be listening that do know you, of your level of cooperation, your enthusiasm, your genuine kindness and thoughtfulness to each and every person that comes there and does the work. I personally have seen multiple changes in you, and And that's in a good way that your level of willingness to do your work. Very commendable, Tim. Very commendable. And I acknowledge and appreciate you doing that work.
Well, thank you. The other comment I would make is that probably the next most important thing besides the commitment to be there every week or every other week, however you schedule it, is to dedicate and stay focused on the work that Michael does. So if it's going to be a MindShifters group, present Michael's material and have that be the core. And so each week we start the group by showing 1 hour of one of Michael's 2-hour lectures, and then we have an hour and a half of discussion. And invariably, when you start a group like this, you're going to attract people who do a lot of other work, a lot of other study, a lot of other reading, a lot of other seminars. And they're going to bring that in and want to share that with the group, and they're going to want to say, hey, next week can we show this lecture, or next week can I talk about this great presentation I went to? And I think the second most important thing behind or being there every week is making sure that you hold the boundaries and say, this is about this specific MindShifters work. All of that other stuff is great, and then we encourage people to trade emails about it and talk about it before the meetings and after the meetings, but very rarely do I present anything in the group that isn't the Michael Ryce lectures and the tools that are available, primarily because they're so effective and also because they're free. Michael makes all of these work available free on his website, so I'm not selling anything to anybody, but I'm presenting them with tools that I know can make their life better. And in the past year, maybe a year and a half, I've only gradually introduced 2 other sources of material into the MindShifters group, and only because they are so compatible. They are so much the same message, but just a different voice as the work Michael's doing. So it's just validating the work, and then we come right back to listening to Michael's lectures and doing those worksheet tools.
I think it's a very valid point that you make with that, Tim. I know that one of my teachers told me many, many years ago, you can't ride 2 camels across the desert. And I didn't get that at first until I was willing to learn and get the basics and the fundamentals down about different disciplines. Then I needed to stay focused on one long enough to where I was able to make a shift in my mind with it. And of course, here we have the mind shifter. It is very important. The mind is very cunning, baffling, and powerful, and its whole design and in the culture is to keep us from looking at certain things. And of course, when those certain things come up, wow, you know what? So-and-so said this. Let me go look at this. Let me go look at that. And it's just another distraction of the mind to keep something dissociated, and there's that word dissociated, from what it is that I really need to look at. So, again, congratulations. That's a great insight and support for folks that have and will have that will come up, because they will always do that, not as a conscious way, coming from the space of, wow, let's look at this, and I think you're right on with staying focused on this work long enough in order to have a good foundation. So, good. Amy, is there a way, I don't know, I'm checking back in, if anyone has any questions and thoughts about it, anybody in the chat room or anybody online?
No
well,
one.
We've got Dr. Tim here that he can answer some questions as well.
Yeah, no one's actually in the chat room, and no one else has their hand raised, but I could throw a question out there that, might help other people as well. I'm in a small condo. I feel that it's going to be selling shortly. I put it on the market about a year ago. I'm basically somebody who can't live like on a middle floor where there's people above me, because right now the people that are up there, it's a young couple, and they're up at night. I think they work during the day or something, I'm not sure, but and it's noisy. Now, did I attract this, or, and I've worked on it, and it's pretty much under control now, but I keep wondering, well, did I attract this?
Okay. Tim, you want to make a comment on that?
Okay. One of the things that we run into quite a bit when people come into the group is a question very similar to this, because Michael talks about how every time I think a thought, even if it's an unconscious belief or thought that's going on in me, it sets up a vibration that sends out a high-frequency wave. And Michael calls it the psychic megaphone, which then is like shouting to the universe, I have this problem in me and I'm unaware of it, so I need someone on the outside to come and trigger this negative response in me so I can clean it up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of times people take that and stretch it out and generalize it to every bad situation in their life or every situation that's similar to something that they didn't like in the past, and then they'll get stuck in the loop of asking, well, how am I attracting this to me? How am I attracting this to me? And we try to help them see in our MindShifters group that just because something happens in my vicinity, outside of me, in actuality, doesn't mean I created it or attracted it. But if I have any kind of a response to it other than love, I have created my response to it. So part of the thing we would work with you on in our MindShifters group is doing some worksheets around if you have any negative feelings, worry, anger, frustration, about the fact that you're in this apartment and there's too much noise from above, then you would do the worksheet to dismantle the belief or the stuck, trapped energy within you that's generating that negative emotion. If I have somebody making noise above me and it's not upsetting me, that means I've probably done my work, because if in the past I lived in a place and there was noise above me, it drove me crazy. Well, now that I'm living in a place, if noise happens above me, that doesn't mean I attracted it, unless it's starting to upset me. And then it's a gift telling me, oh, I still have work to do. I still have upset in my mind-body energy system attached to having noise, and I can now go in and use the tools and dismantle those false beliefs, those negative realities that generate the negative emotion, the sadness, the anger, the frustration. Does that help?
Yeah, so it's not so much I need to look at what's actually happening with the noise upstairs, because when it does happen, it's like, I'm trying to sleep and I hear thump, 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 or the creak in the floor. So I'm not really supposed to look at that. I'm just supposed to really look at the anger that I could be holding on to inside me, right?
Right, if you're feeling angry.
Yeah.
So, there was a time when I lived in an apartment right out of college, and there was all kinds of noise above me, and it didn't really bother me until it went to the angry noise between people. And then I had fear. And then I had to do something with my fear. Now, they could be, banging and partying, and that didn't bother me. And I could sleep through it, or if it would wake me up, I would just read and wait for them to be done with their party. But when it was people yelling at people in an angry way, that resonated completely differently. And it stirred up fear in me. Well, that would have been a great opportunity for me to take out a worksheet and start working on my fear. Now, at some level, I might also, if, I have reason to believe from what I'm hearing that somebody's in danger, I might also call for help. I'm not saying that I ignore the outside, the actual events on the outside, but I also want to take ownership of whatever it stirs up within me.
So if I may add something with that, Tim, and I think you're right on with it, with what you're saying, is that, and we talked a little bit about this, Amy, yesterday with Carol, in that, if I'm walking through a zoo and there's a roaring lion over there and it's being aggressive and tormenting and those type of things, I can identify that lion is coming from anger or from rage. If it resonates some anger and rage in me, then I may need to do some work around that. I can also just notice that that's what's going on and, in essence, not buy into that and can send love to the lion. As crazy as that may sound, that's really the way that, like the horse whisperer and the different people, the animals, they recognize that, and they held what Michael refers to as the space of love, the space of love in the healing. And as Michael also says, this doesn't mean to be a doormat, that people, when they do certain behaviors, that we hold them accountable for those behaviors, and we come in from our highest guidance. Remember, when we're in hostility or fear or anger, we're at our lowest level of intelligence, and that's when we do behavior that then we go afterwards, God, why did I do that? I said I wasn't going to do that. It's because that once we resonate into that field and we're in our non-being mind, we do the things that we later regret and say, God, why did I do that? When we remove the hostility and fear, then our highest guidance, we will know exactly what to say and do with that particular event situation. We'll know intuitively what to do. And then when we express that to someone, we're coming from our highest guidance. And so whatever it is that they're going to do, and that's usually what keeps people from taking action towards saying anything or to doing something, is the fear that they have of the retaliation of what's going to come back from that. Well, if I've removed that, there's no fear. I'm not resonating anything in the other person. If I'm coming from love, it will hold the space for them that whatever comes up, that they will respond in that way. If they don't, if I'm holding the space of love, it's irrelevant what it is that they do. So again, as Tim talked about, we have to remove any anger, hostility, fear, disappointment, sadness that's up for us. Otherwise, we will keep drawing it to us. It's not like that we create it, and at the same time, we do create it for the purpose of doing our healing work, if that is so what it is. And maybe you're there, Amy, for this person that's living up above there, for them to learn something about healing themselves and being accountable for a certain behavior. And maybe you're the instrument that's going to happen through.
Yeah, I thought about that too, yeah.
Yeah, and so as Tim says, first do the work, though, to remove any hostility, anger, or fear. When you do that, I promise you what opens up is the answer. Oh, this is the simplest thing. We know what it is. At that level, we know exactly what it is that we're to do. It's just that we have so many other programs that are reactionary that we're concerned about doing. The first thought that comes to my mind is, as I said, I'm a Vietnam veteran. There are a lot of veterans that I know that are trained and conditioned to react rather than to respond. And that overwhelming conditioning and training to react is what that they're so fearful of doing. When they can come back into the quote world, to the states, and to a civilized society, and something resonates, fear or hostility in them, they automatically react to it, and then they feel bad about it. So then what the process is that I'm going to keep this down. And that's the reason that they turn to drugs and stronger things in order to keep it dissociated from what it is, the possibility that could happen, so that they don't have that same experience. That's called PTSD. I worked with that for many, many years and worked with people on doing their healing work around it. Once that they can let go of the fear and the hostility of the possibility of things happening, then they're able to heal and not be at the effect of. It takes work. That's why we have the support groups. That's why Michael makes the work available online to anyone that can afford it or can't afford it in the monetary sense. And we do look for support because we do want to keep this work going for the people that are in the place in order to do that. We have Building the Brain Cells games. We have the MindShifters support groups. We have the information online at www.whyagain.com. And we encourage them to support everyone in doing their work. So that's where we're at. So it's a great
that was helpful. Yeah, and it does take work because it takes work to actually stop the reaction and figure out, what is really going on here, because I know it's a bigger purpose. I know there's another reason. I knew it wasn't just because, but it takes some work to really stop and, look at what's going on inside your bodies.
Yeah, now here's the thing, Amy, that what we are so been conditioned to do is that we're going to think about it. It's kind of like what Patrick was talking about earlier, we've got to be cautious about thinking. See, we have been taught to believe that we are thinking when we're actually only rearranging things in the brain and the mind that we come up with that say that it is. Thinking is a spiritual process. That means to remove any of the hostility and fear, to remove from the non-being mind, the dissociated mind, and tap into our highest guidance. That's what thinking truly is. As Michael uses that phrase, if people knew what we were thinking, if we spoke what it is that we thought, we would be speechless. We wouldn't be able to say the things. Yeah. So what we want to be able to do is to let go of the thinking, to remove ourselves from that. That's just the mind's game, the dissociated mind's game of keeping the story going. Because if I'm telling the story, I'm keeping it going, whether I'm doing it silently or with someone else. And when it gets so strong that we want to share it with somebody else, and I use that word loosely about sharing it, what we want to do is to reinforce it with someone else. Well, reinforce it through the MindShifters group of using these tools. When you use these tools, the tools I use to teach create results just like the tools. And we're always teaching ourselves. That's who we're ultimately teaching.
The other thing I would offer, Amy, is that if I'm in a situation, laying in bed at night, and something's keeping me awake, whether it's something internal or a noise from the outside, I like to turn to what Michael calls the ancient definition of prayer, which is to set a trap for God. And the idea there is that in the ancient tradition, they knew God to be energy, to be the energy of love. And it's possible for me to use my mind-body energy system just like I use a radio tuner, and to use my spiritual faculty of choice to choose only those thoughts that are keyed to love. And so it's like tuning a radio. I can tune my mind to try to make a space for only loving, nurturing, totally accepting thoughts about myself and everyone around me. And an aid to that is the ancient definition for humility, which is to be able to see the highest and best in another person, despite everything else that's there, to see the highest and best in them, and then to choose to cooperate only with that. So even if someone is stomping around angry or coming at me angry or saying angry words, when I choose humility, I can look at that person or be in the middle of that situation and see only the face of Christ in the other person, and then choose to cooperate with my thoughts and my energy only with that Christ energy in the other.
Yeah, wonderful segue into the story that Michael talks about, Tim, about the woman that came up to him in Atlanta and said, I want to thank you for saving my life. And he says, oh, really? How is that? And a year prior to that, she had come to Michael's workshops, had attended all of them, had been practicing and putting the work into her life, and she had come home one day, walked into her apartment, closed the door, turned around, there was a man with her knife and said he was going to kill her. And then he said he was going to rape and to kill her. And he proceeded with that act, and he had a knife at her throat. And she said for whatever reason that she clicked into hold the space of love, the filter of love, Rahma. And when she shifted into that space was when she looked at him and saw the terror in his eyes. And when his eyes met hers and she was coming from that space of love, he broke out crying, dropped his knife, and left. So that's a real example of holding the space of love while other people are doing whatever it is that they're doing in order to heal. And that's very powerful. Can you imagine? So when we have these little things, and I've been rereading the book Man's Search for Meaning by
Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl, thank you. And he talks a lot about the same thing of what goes on here in his life today versus what was going on in the concentration camps. It's a very, it is that way that, no matter what, I hold this for me, no matter what is going on in this physical world out here. So that's a wonderful book. I'll plug that book and therefore that Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. So, do we have any callers out there, Amy? It's 646-200-4169. I'm getting better at it says keep repeating this number often so that people, if they're listening, that they know the number to call in. It's 646-200-4169 or Talk Radio, Blog Talk Radio.
No callers yet. There's a few people listening online, but their hands aren't raised, so.
Yeah, well, that's cool. You know what I invite those folks that are listening that you notice that you're having a conversation in your head about what it is that we're all talking about here. And you may have that question, and there's something that's keeping you from either typing it in or clicking one and asking the question. And I invite you to push through that. Just risk it. By you risking it and asking a question, by putting yourself out there, what you're doing is challenging that carbon-based memory and that dissociated mind to see it in a different way. As soon as you see it in a different way, life shifts. Amy, I think that you just talked about it. My guess is that you have a little different perspective on what it is of how to now handle this situation of the noisy neighbors.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and the only way that you came to that was that you risked, and you said, well, you know what, I'll ask a question. I've got this going on. As soon as you did that, it's now impossible because your mind can only show you evidence of what's in there, that if this happens this evening, what will come up for you is the dialogue that you just had with Tim around this situation. And it could not have happened, huh?
Right, it will, yeah.
Yeah, and that only happens now because that you were willing to do something a little different. You've now taken some new information in, and that will be right there. It'll be right there at the top of your consciousness about doing it. So we encourage everyone that's on the phone and or in the chat room or online listening to risk it. You've got a question. And you know what? It doesn't get any easier later. It just gets later. It's just a nice way of it.
David, I have a
question. There is a question in the chat room.
Okay.
This is from Anitra, I think. She said she just moved, and she's wondering if you see it as a positive change.
That she's just moved. It sounds like that she may be talking about it from a physical locality, and, I don't know the answer to that. What I invite you to is to take a look at is that, do you think that it is? Was it one of the geographic cures, what Michael refers to, that, we go to the other side of the planet so that we don't have the problem of the situation that in front of us? Though we live in a world of resonance, that we're going to always draw to us the same thing, just like what Amy was talking about, until she adds to some information and sees something differently, she will keep drawing that into her. So I don't know. You might want to, if you haven't read the book or if you haven't gone online to look at the worksheets and to do a worksheet, you might do a worksheet around that. Most people have the association, have the assumption that the worksheet is just about doing a worksheet when I'm upset. And that is untrue. This worksheet can be done on any person, place, thing, past, present, or future. A future worksheet. How do I do a future worksheet? You just put it down here in that content of something that's going to happen. So you might go download a worksheet and do a worksheet on that. On, was this a good move? And then you will see through the exercise of the worksheet, talking about it, it assists in supporting us in doing something. The physical part of writing it, of doing a worksheet around it, will open things for you, just like it did for Amy.
Yeah, so, David, she did comment and say that she feels that it will be great for all involved. She moved back in with her dad to help him out.
Well, you know what? And you might do some worksheets around your father tonight, and then come on the air tomorrow and talk with us about it. See what has happened. My first thought was, I remember when I was going to move back in with my dad while he was going through his transition period. And on my way driving to his home, he had a diabetic he went into a diabetic coma. He went into the hospital, and then we got him into the nursing home, and so I never did actually live with him as he processed through his stuff. But I would do some work around that. I would do worksheets around that. It can be very, very supportive. Notice that I would look at it that you've created an opportunity to do some major healing.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And for everyone out there that's holding their breath, notice that you're holding your breath, that it may have triggered and resonated some things in you that you might want to look at. I will let you all know that Michael is dealing with that, is dealing, when I say dealing, he's healing through some relationship issues that he had with his father, and his father has made this transition over 30 years ago. He told me the other day that this is a major little healing for him around his relationship with his parent, with his father. So there are no coincidences. Lots of energy moving towards that. Remember, we live in an energy world. There's nothing, this time and space, because that Michael isn't here in the physical sense, or he's not even on the phone as a sense. It's still energy. We're all tapping into that energy, that healing energy. The MindShifters support group that Tim is talking about, he's holding that energy in that space. There are people that are getting attracted. As soon as they attract and they get on that frequency level, there's more people that are attracted to that, and that's what culminates the entire universe for people to be accountable and responsible for creating their own life. It's pretty simple physics.
Are you there, David?
I am.
All right. I just had a comment I would make to wrap this up from my perspective before I have to go and the call is over. One of my other favorite teachers has been known to say that if I'm going to learn anything, I must first make myself subordinate to that which I would have teach me. And so I have to go into a situation with the understanding that what I currently know is either completely wrong or at least partially wrong or incomplete. And if it's anything that's powerfully new, I'm going to have to expose myself to it time after time after time and check my attitude to make sure that I'm going at it with the understanding that what I already think I know is either only partially true or completely wrong. And as I do that, I create the process which allows what Michael calls creating new brain cells or building new brain cells. And that's another reason why I think our MindShifters support group is going so strong after 5.5 years, because we are not just getting together and doing the worksheets, we're getting together each week and watching the lectures over and over and over again. And I still have different experiences, even though I've seen each of these lectures over 12 or 13 or 14 times. And I'm getting to the point where big chunks of it I say, oh, I already know this stuff, and yes, and I get this. And yet, week after week, as I'm listening and thinking I already know this stuff, I'll get a new perspective. I'll get a new angle. I'll get a deeper understanding. And it couldn't happen if I didn't have those two factors. If I didn't say to myself, I don't know it all yet, and so what I already know is either only partially true or in places probably completely false, and I want to expose myself to it again and again and again. So that was my closing comment. I wanted to share that with you and why I think I get so much value out of the group myself.
Yeah, Tim, thank you. And I'll leave you with the quote, that one from Einstein, who many consider one of the most brilliant people on the planet. He says, the more that he knows, the more that he knows he doesn't know anything. You know, and it takes that being, quote, wrong. And if you want to know how to tell whether or not that you're wrong, if you're feeling anything other than love, it's a wrong way of seeing it. Not a good or bad way. That was that sin thing that came along. It's about, wow, the way that I'm looking at this is creating hostility and fear, sadness, disappointment, grief. And if that's the case, my mind is showing me false evidence. It's not true. It's not the truth. Remember, the carbon-based memory, the dissociated mind, is all a lie. And for it to be revealed, it has to be acknowledged that it's wrong. And for it to be wrong, it means death. And that's what was meant by we have to die in order to live. We have to, our non-being self, our carbon-based memory, the dissociated mind, the ego, call it whatever that you want. In the ancient days, they called it, quote, the devil. It was, in the Aramaic, it was called the resistor. Satan was the resistor of seeing the truth, of what the truth is. Once we see the truth, disappears. And tomorrow, maybe if there's time, then we will get into what is the truth and what does the truth look like. How do we spot the truth? What is it that we need to do? I don't know. How much time do we have, Amy?
About 80 seconds.
80 seconds. Okay.
Yep.
Well, Amy, do you have any closing comments that you would like to make to the group of the audience? And the person that texts that question in, please go to the website, do some worksheets on it, and let's chat tomorrow and see what's been revealed.
Thank you both. Yeah, I thank you both for your wisdom, and it really helped reinforce the fact that, yes, I needed to look at it in a different way, and I was getting a grip on it, but you really pulled it home for me, so thank you very much.
You're most welcome. That is called building the brain cells. That is called seeing it and doing it differently, and that's healing. That's the healing part of all of it. And how do you feel now compared to how you were feeling before, Amy?
I feel a lot better. A big release.
Yeah, isn't it so crazy that the mind wants to hold on to something like that? It's insane.
Yes.
We've been taught in an insane way. It's just insanity. Right. So we're here to heal and to support people in their healing. I'm here on this talk show for my healing and for my work. Thank you all, everyone, for making it possible for me to be part of this support group. This is a powerful, powerful support group. This is the strongest MindShifters group on the planet, and we invite everyone to tune in tomorrow. Text us, email us, call us in with your questions, your thoughts, your ideas, and your support. We love you all, and blessings.
Thanks, David.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Everyone.
Makes sense of how market.
Bye.
Bye-bye.